Hey, this is Sarah. I want to help you make fat stacks. I also want to do a reaction video to these tips from Daya, how I would start to freelance in 2024 if I could start over. I keep seeing this video pop up in my feed, and I want to know if I should recommend it or not. So let's watch it together, shall we? Now, before we even get started, this is not going to be a roast. I don't really do that. I feel like we should be lifting each other all up. But I do want to see if I agree with this person on everything that she's going to share. Because if there's one thing I know after 10 years of doing this and 5 years of coaching other people to do this, there is a different way to freelance for absolutely everybody. So the most important thing is to keep exposing yourself to different ways of doing the thing you want to do. So let's see.
On October 14th, 2016, I decided to give freelancing a proper go for the very
Decided.
first time. That tiny brave decision on October 14th changed my entire life. I went from being absurdly unhappy making $8 an hour at the way bottom of the corporate ladder to working with the raddest 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs, making multiple six figures as a freelancer, infinite work from couch privileges, and creating a cozy, comfy life for myself. So
Well, let me pause here because right quick, this is not really real life. There's no way you can just go from $8 an hour to suddenly working with your ideal client profiles. That's just not likely. But first, I want to start with the part where she said she decided to change her life because that is nuts. I fortunately was laid off to get into freelancing. That's how I got into this world. I was at a marketing company for 6 months and then they just told me it was over, which was great. So, I just want to put it out there. If you had a job, saved up, quit, began to freelance, I bow to you. Seriously. That is one of the most impossibly brave things I could imagine. If I hadn't been laid off, it would have taken so much for me to go and freelance. And I realize now looking back, because I know so much about myself, that taking that kind of risk and losing control of my income like that would have just never even occurred to me to be a good thing to do. So, I just have to start by saying this lady is wildly brave.
if I could speak to 2016 Dea, who didn't even know what freelancing was, had zero work experience, zero network, zero clue about the
Yeah, if you don't have any of these things, that's totally okay. So, freelancing is where you don't have an employer and you work for yourself and you go around with this certain skill set or this certain ability and you offer that to people for different kinds of pricing situations. Many people kick it off pricing by the hour. Like she mentioned, she made $8 an hour in her job and then switched over to something else. Most people, when you've been doing it for a long time and you are really good at making money, you're going to charge a project rate or a value priced rate. And that's where you set a certain value for what you're doing, whether that's based on time or not. And then you charge that. It is really funny to me. I refer to myself as baby Sarah as well whenever I'm talking about pre-business me. And I think that's because like she has zero network, zero experience, zero clue. You learn so much. It's impossible not to learn a ton the first couple of years you're doing this because the things we're taught to become employees are just very different from the things that you need to know when you run a business or when you're in charge of your own time, even. It's just really different.
This is exactly what I would tell her to do step by step. Now, first up is probably the most important part to freelance. What services are you offering? What are you going to trade for money? Now, broadly speaking, there
Right
are
on.
two things you can sell as a freelancer. One, a specialized skill like copywriting, graphic design, business net,
Perfect.
or two, your time. Now, I don't know about you, but I did not have profitable skills back in 2016, so I had to sell my time. Now, your time is valuable to business owners that have 403 tasks on their to-do list and not enough hours in the day to do them. So
I love it. It's so true. And this is what kills me working with women in the business space is that they go into it so used to being undervalued. It just boggles the mind. They just assume, what could I have to offer? Who could possibly need my help? Who would possibly pay for my help? When frankly, everyone that I work with, their listening skills and their critical thinking skills and their basic writing skills, it makes me feel really frustrated how undervalued they feel going into the business space. So a lot of what we talk about is exactly what Daya is saying. To someone running a business or to a marketing manager operating with a budget, they just need smart, friendly people to come in and help them do stuff. So if you can do that, that's the first skill. And then the rest of it falls into place as you figure out Who do I want to help? How do I let them know I'm the one to help? How do I get examples of me helping people? Those are all just details that fall into place. I especially love that Daya highlights that you don't have to have those skills going into it. Obviously, a specialized skill is going to make you more money on the market. Not all of us have that right away. Personally, I just had an English degree and then 6 months writing experience with the marketing company. And then that was enough to leverage my way into hourly rates at marketing agencies as a freelancer.
So since I was starting from zero, I offered my time with sorting photos, organizing blog posts, making book templates, using Canva.
I
None
wouldn't
of
do
these
that.
are really highly technical or difficult skills. You can use Google and figure most of them out in about 20 to 30 minutes.
I appreciate the creativity, but if you want to jump right into making money, you want to pick something. I guess I'm really biased here though, because I help people with marketing writing. So yeah, if we're starting over at nothing, do that. That's creative, but I do think that's gonna be a waste of time if you're looking for like a professional salary.
Now, the key here, though, is we don't want to get stuck selling our time forever. Time is not a good way to scale a
Oh,
freelancing business because your time is finite. There's a cap to how much time you have unless you're immortal. So the key is that while you're selling your time, you should be building a blue ocean skill on the side. So if you want to make good money as a freelancer over the long term, you need to prioritize detaching your money from your time. And I wish someone would have told me this sooner. Think very strategically about the freelancer red ocean versus blue ocean when it comes to this topic. The red ocean is cutthroat. Everyone has to compete on pricing, so the prices are
okay. Before we get into this whole ocean thing, which is actually kind of interesting, it is worth considering that there's a comfort level to working hourly. Some people, it's just how their brain is built. And if they go away from hourly, they can have a hard time with that. It's especially true if you're very slow at what you do. Oh, hold on. My kids got me up at 5. Need some more coffee. Anyway, this is especially true if you're very slow and thorough at what you do. Charging a project rate can be a real risk when you first get started. So if you need to charge hourly for the first year or so, that's totally fair. I think the distinction I want to make is just that once you want to make a lot more money, once you want to have free time, then it is pretty important to switch to a project rate or a retainer fee, stuff like that.
driven all the way down. The red ocean is hyper competitive because it has a very low barrier to entry. So most beginners end up here. This is exactly where I was in 2016. Swimming in the red ocean makes you easily replaceable because you have no real competitive advantage, right? Like, why hire me for $20 an hour if they can hire stupid Bob for $10 an hour to do the exact same thing? So we don't want to be here. Freelancing is about 2000% easier and more sustainable if you choose to swim in the blue ocean. And to get
That is just so true and so beautiful to be sharing this message because people can really take this personally. This is kind of the first moment when your ego needs to die because it can be really hurtful if you go in there and you're like, I'm going to do the puzzle. I'm important and great. Going to be $50 to do the puzzle. When literally a turtle could shuffle onto the screen and do the puzzle and do it just for a piece of lettuce. And then we're going to take that personally and say, I'm worth more than a piece of lettuce. And it hurts. But in reality, what's happened is you've fallen into that red ocean that she's talking about. And that's so true. You need to go and do other things like Sudoku that the turtle can't do. And then you're going to be paid more. Why are we talking about turtles?
get there, you have to pick a blue ocean skill to learn. A blue ocean skill is a skill that solves a big, frustrating problem for a very specific group of business owners. It is a skill that you have a competitive advantage on. It is also a low supply, high demand skill. Supply and demand is a market mechanism we have to abide by and respect. Now, it might take you a little time to find a blue ocean skill that you like. So, in the early months, I tried voiceovers, translations, content writing, graphic design, and ultimately, after a ton of research and experimentation, I found my blue ocean thing. Swam my little fish self way over to the blue ocean. This is
I just love the theme of choice and change that's coming up. This is someone to listen to. We are experiencing things, making decisions, and then changing what we're doing based on the information that we got. Marvelous.
my fish self. I became a freelance digital business manager. It's a super high value role, solves huge problems for CEOs. It's high demand, low supply, high competitive advantage for me because I am a mega nerd for planning organizations and systems. So much so that I do it for free and obsessively study it in my free time. And because of all of this, it made me very good at it very quickly and it made it very hard then to replace me. And I
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I guess I'm not sorry because I'm doing a reaction video, which is in the nature of interrupting. But the tip I'm going to glean from this here, whatever you are super interested in your off time, like you're reading articles about it, you can go down the rabbit hole. It's just fun to think about. That's a great way to figure out a niche. I've worked with people who didn't really have a specialization or anything from a previous career that they could bring into things, but just coming across things that they find super interesting was enough for them to specialize. It was really cool.
Officially swam my way over to the blue ocean. Everything is so much better in the blue ocean, so I really recommend swimming there. And another advanced tip, pick a service that businesses need recurringly instead of one-off so that you can have some sort of income consistency and won't have to scramble to find
Heck
new
yeah.
clients every month. So example, as a business manager, my services are very recurring because clients need project and team management every month. They don't just need their team managed once and then they're like, okay, the team is on their own, right?
So true. And exactly why I love marketing and content marketing in particular. I see copywriters struggle a bit because people don't need a website refresh every month. They don't need an ad campaign every month, but people do need blogs and articles and case studies and industry reports and all these long form pieces of content. That's why it worked out so well for me.
Meanwhile, doing branding for a client is a very one-off thing. Clients don't really need new branding done every month.
Yep.
So to make your services more recurring, you may offer to do monthly graphic refreshes for ads or for social media, but that's something to keep in mind as you're deciding on your blue ocean skill. Focus on a recurring problem, not a one-off problem. Now, as a
Right on.
freelancer, the biggest asset, really the only asset in your business is you. AKA, you need to optimize the bleep out of your biggest asset if you don't want to be selling your time forever. AKA, the more you invest in your biggest asset, the more money your biggest asset can then earn. So the more skills I had, the more I could charge. That's what this graphs on the screen basically tells you. Now, if you don't have money, like I didn't back in 2016, then you can invest with your time. I was living, eating.
I want to call attention to that chart, man, because it is so true. If you keep doing the same thing, you are very likely to make the same money. There's really no way around that rule. If you don't like what's happening, you need to do different work, work for a different person, or work at a different skill level, or all three of those things.
Bathing in Google and YouTube back. There's so many free resources available nowadays. Google is so underrated. The fact that I can Google,
Seriously.
my cat ate a lush packing peanut and get an immediate answer to that highly specific question, we're taking the internet for granted. By the way, here's a little secret just for you guys. Back in 2016, I always had Google open when I was on calls with clients and I Googled everything that I didn't know. Every word, every phrase, every concept that they said I didn't know, I Googled immediately. And I know
Same.
absolutely everything now. So look at the blue ocean skill you want to offer and make a mega list of 20 to 50 things you want to learn about it. So for example, for digital business management, I had a list like this back in 2017. Now, if you don't know what to put on this list, here's a fun hack that I
Also, double
shouldn't be
keyword
telling you as a course
research.
creator myself, but if you have no money, go look for the best online course or the best book in the skill you're curious about learning and look at their curriculum. Now you can just create a curriculum like that for yourself using free resources instead. And that's that the basics to most skills can be learned in 10 to 20 hours of dedicated study. Plus, bonus, as you are learning, you're going to be creating things to practice your skills, right? So those things go straight into your freelancer portfolio.
What is
My
up with
hair
this
just got
cat?
disturbed. Example, I could spend 10 hours learning everything there is to know about Zapier, the tool, create a few Zap ideas and examples specifically for YouTubers and things they might need Zaps for, pop them in a portfolio and offer automation setup to YouTubers. There are people running six-figure businesses that just offer help with Zapier. Now, of course, paid resources are normally better, faster, easier, stronger than free resources. So if you have the means, that invest a little bit of money. And
No.
actually from the beginning, but looking back, I could have made more money faster if I had invested just a little in me sooner. The highest ROI.
Same. So same. This comes up so much. But the best thing I ever did for my business was networking with other people really early on and then taking a leap and going to this conference called Double Your Freelance Income in like 2016. It was just so bizarre to me, the idea of spending money and going to a conference just representing myself. Now I can't imagine going and representing a company, but at the time it was this bizarre magical feeling. And that's where I met one of the speakers. I eventually hired them as my coach. I learned a ton really fast. It's not an option for anybody, but if you are making money from what you're doing, set aside 10 to 20% and just reinvest that, whether that's books, spa trips to think, sauna time. I'm partial to coaches and programs and stuff like that, but however you learn, invest some money back into that. It's really important.
I've ever made have always been the investments that I've made in myself and my skills. Now let's talk about making money as a freelancer because
Well, let me go on about that and just because a lot of us, again, the self-esteem or the self-value comes into it, and it's so hard to see ourselves as someone who's worth 2 to 3 to $5,000 of development. And I really want to encourage people to rethink that because if you aren't willing to spend that much on you, Why would a client come in and decide you're worth a 5 to 10K retainer for something? If you want to play a bigger game, you really need to invest in yourself. And I think it's really powerful when you can be the first person to invest in yourself. Now, there's some rules with that. You want to be earning or at least have some kind of income. You wouldn't want to use credit cards or go into debt for any of this kind of stuff. But if you have that cash on hand or if you have an income source and you are thinking about investing it in yourself, it's always the best move.
This took me a long time to learn, so I'll just give you the shortcut. Convincing someone to give you money is about three things. One, solving a really big problem for that person.
Yep.
Two, speaking the same language as that person. And
Yep.
three, reducing the risk as much as possible for that
Yep.
person to say yes to you.
Boom,
Some you
boom.
probably address via learning a blue ocean skill. Speaking the same language, I only learned this later on, but you can solve the biggest problems under the sun for a business owner. But if they don't that's what you're doing, it will sound like this to them. 我听不懂你在说. It'll be like you're speaking a totally different language. So you need to connect what you do to their goals, their pain points, to
Not even a totally different language, but if you think about it, if you don't solve a big problem and you don't talk about it accurately, that's a really high risk situation for them. So I would say it all comes down to risk, but this is 100% true.
why they should care. So example, I manage projects for my clients, but my clients don't really care about project management. What they do care about is I save them 10 hours a week and things get done twice as fast, which means they make twice as much money, right? So you need to speak in why you should care language, not what I do language, if that makes sense.
You
Hi,
There's that cat again.
Now, when it comes to reducing risk, I could give a whole TED talk about this, but the gist is if you are a beginner, you are a risky hire for a business owner. It's very risky for them to bet on you, to give you a chance.
Yep.
So you need to reduce that risk some way, somehow. So charge less to start, do something for free, make them a portfolio sample, pitch a $100 offer instead of a $1,000 offer, offer a trial period. So personally,
This is going to be the first thing I disagree with, frankly. Your time always has value, at least in the writing space. I am not going to offer to do anything for free. I'm certainly not going to cut my prices by 90%. What I am going to do is invest in myself and create portfolio content. I'm going to read a ton in the space and I'm going to create some sample content, maybe get a coach who's going to review that for me like I do. Or I'm going to lean into my network where people don't have that relationship risk because they trust you, but that's going to get you the work coming in the door. You do what you got to do, but I really think you should be able to earn while you learn.
for clients when I was just getting started by starting at $10 an hour. And then I just increased that by 10 to 20% with each additional sign. This also is nice because it ensures that you're validating your price point every step of the way. So you're not just like picking a number randomly, right? Now, the next thing when it comes to making money that's super important to understand is your freelancer conversion rate. Your freelancer conversion rate is, broadly speaking, the amount of clients you sign divided by the total leads you get. So if you talk to 10
math
leads and
starts to
one
hurt.
person becomes a client, you have a 10% conversion rate. If you talk to 20 leads and one person becomes a client, you have a 5% conversion rate. When you first
I get it. I know it's true. I don't think like this.
begin, your conversion rate may be 1% or 2% or 5%. As you slowly become better and better at cold pitching, at applying more credibility, your portfolio looks better, clothes better, shoes better, you work harder, your conversion rate will naturally go up. But because your conversion rate is probably really low in the beginning, it requires more effort to get started as a freelancer. It requires more getting out there. So set that expectation for yourself. And the
Yeah,
only way to
that's
get
true.
that conversion rate up and to get booked out is to get those reps in. You need to get yourself in front of the right people over and over and over again. Now, landing clients. I've done a whole playlist of videos here on YouTube.
It's true, and it hurts. Like when normal people have to go from the only time you've had to sell yourself is in like a couple interviews to get the job, and then suddenly you're doing that weekly with new people. Like there's some emotional weightlifting that has to happen there, and I promise it does get easier. One thing I do with my coaching clients is we'll do a practice prospecting call, and that's where I will either dress up or do an accent, but I pretend to be a potential client, and then we walk through a lot of the pitfalls people have where I ask them like, what's your process? How much do you charge? I leave long pauses and awkward silences to see how they handle it, and then I give some feedback. So you could easily, find a buddy online and do that kind of stuff and work on your sales skills. The one thing that's true across all of it is you have to embrace that feeling of awkwardness. It's just gonna feel awkward, but then you get paid, so it's okay.
YouTube that go into detail on different things regarding that. But three quick things here. Number one, create a system, not a goal. A goal is I want to land a client. I want to make $100. A system is I will send off 10 proposals every day for 1 month. A goal is, in my opinion, pretty useless. A system is what will get you to where you want to go, actually. Two, diversify where to find your clients. I only used Upwork when I started, which obviously is risky because if Upwork hadn't worked, I would have given up, I guess.
Yeah,
So there are
I
tons of
would do
ways
that.
to get in front of clients that I didn't know back then. But you can cold pitch via email, you can cold pitch via Instagram, reach out to people via Twitter, apply to job postings, you can network, you can join strategic communities, you can reach
Yep,
out within your inner
yep.
circle, LinkedIn. There's so many things. So I would pick 2 to 3 methods for finding clients and create systems for each of those. So example,
Yeah, and I like the mentor approach too. You find somebody just a couple years ahead of you doing what you're doing and reach out and start being friendly. Now you can't reach out and then just ask all your questions endlessly and assume they're going to get on the phone with you and all that stuff, but if you reach out with a very specific targeted question, there very few people are going to turn you down on that.
if you want to cold pitch, you can commit to doing 3 cold pitches a day for a month. That's a really good system. Last thing, if you want to avoid rejection, you're going to have a really rough time booking yourself out as a freelancer or making bananas. That's
True.
so hard for me to accept. And it held me back big time from getting out there and doing the work required. So get comfortable with rejection. Know that you can't control who they pick and who they hire, but you can control how much you apply and the quality of those applications and your skill set, right?
Yeah, get comfortable with rejection is just such a blanket thing to say. I totally agree. Let's see. How did I get comfortable with rejection? If I was going to summarize it in three steps, I'd say one, rejection is a lot easier when there are other people saying yes, and you have to keep going for other people to say yes. So continuing to do it is the only way for rejection to hurt less. Two, I had to realize that people are irrational and it's not always about me. Sometimes it is, but often it's not. And three, I had to realize timing is everything and we can't control timing. So if you reach out to someone and they have COVID and they just got fired and all these other things, we don't know that's what's happening. We just know they haven't written us back. So when we assume the worst version of the story, I think that's a lot more telling about our mindset and our experiences than it is about anything about our failure or success.
Now we're just missing one final part. In the past 6 years, I've spoken to, been friends with, worked with hundreds of freelancers, and I'll just say that successful freelancers think in a totally different way than beginner freelancers do. There is a lot to this magical freelancer mindset, but it boils down broadly to 3 big things. First thing, and I know you've heard this a million times, but still, I would say 80% of people do not actually do this, and that is to solve problems. Be a problem solver. Most people hand off and outsource their problems to everyone else. We are not those people, not if we want to be successful freelancers. If you go to clients constantly with problems, you're a headache. If you go to clients constantly with solutions, you're aspirin. They now trust you to solve their headaches. And trust me, CEOs have a lot of headaches. So take full ownership of what you are doing.
Yeah, and I'd also add you don't always have to solve it, but you can also be a problem pointer outer. I'll come across a lot of situations where a coaching client has an issue or discovered something about an assignment and needs to make a change, and they're really nervous about how to handle it. And a lot of the times, the best option is just to present all the information to the client and tell them they need to make a decision. So if you realize an article topic isn't going where it should go, or you needed to make a change to an assignment or an outline, you can just put a comment in there saying, I decided to change this because of X and X. Let me know if you agree. Just pointing it out to them and communicating it can often be a way to solve the problem too.
Up for those of you that are naturally empathetic, high five, you're going to have a leg up here. But being client centric every step of the way helps you make so much more money. Client centric means instead of thinking about yourself and how you win, you think about the client and how you will help them win. They're the hero, you're the sidekick that they can't live without. So what do they need? What are they struggling with?
Yeah, this is also a lot less defensive of a way to be. If you're always thinking about you and your income, I can see where that goes wrong because the people I work with tend to skew almost too ethical, like painfully ethical to their own expense. But people who are in it to make their clients' lives better, they tend to make more money.
What's frustrating? What are their secret hopes and dreams? Know those answers. And most importantly, every successful freelancer has a bias for taking action. And I'll be the first to say, I love planning. I love overthinking. So this
Yeah.
is a huge pitfall for me because I can get stuck in the planning stage for ages. At some point, you have to stop learning, stop reading, stop watching YouTube videos. Not this one. This one's clearly superior. Stop making 1 year business plans and just start doing. You will learn so much more on the job. So instead of waiting to be perfectly ready, which stop making 1 year business plans and just start doing.
Yeah, it's true. That's why it can be tough. There are certain parts of the Enneagram that are just more likely to take action on things. I think it's 3, 7, and 8. And that's why that's why it can seem easier for some people to take action on this kind of stuff. But everyone can take action. So I think it comes back to knowing yourself, motivating yourself, and figuring out how to get that perfect situation so that you feel like taking action. But cool. Overall, I would recommend this video. I think this was great advice, and I'd tweak it just a little for freelance writers, but you heard it here first. Now, one thing's bugging me, how she said you don't want to just pick a number out of nowhere. So if you're in marketing and you're in writing, you're going to want to pick up this video next as the holistic writing rubric to help you figure out how much to charge. Before I go, just wanted to say thank you for listening. If you liked what happened here, like and subscribe, because that's the only way I know to keep doing this stuff. What I'm doing, I'm trying a bunch of different formats to see what works and see what people really like. Because overall, I just want to help people be better earners individually. But for a lot of us, and the numbers are rising, it comes down to working for yourself and being a freelancer. You can't just work somewhere and get a sweet watch after 40 years. We're really on our own with our career. And it comes down to knowing how to be yourself in the business world, even if you don't have a lot of experience doing that, or even if you don't fit the mold of what that's supposed to look like. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.